So I've written a response to this paper to basically say, just like the toxic genes that are in the BT, now we have, since the Wall Street collapse, a whole new language in the vocabulary, which is of toxic papers, assets, and instruments. The word toxic has gone beyond the level of poisons to the level of poisonous generation of fakeness and fraudulent data. We've had our Satyam in this country, but I think the idea that bigness and power can generate falsehood, we have to start saying all it generates is more toxics at a different level, an intellectual level, at a scientific level. Now, the whole issue of sameness when it comes to safety in BT is a total fraud in itself, because in '92, when we managed to get the international treaty on the Convention on Biological Diversity, we managed to put a clause 19.3 which obliged states to generate biosafety protocols. And an international instrument was created called the Cartagena Protocol, and national systems had to evolve these protocols too. That's the time where the US government refused to sign that agreement, and the Vice President Dan Quayle issued a notification to say we will treat genetically engineered organisms as substantially equivalent to non-genetically engineered products. We will not look, and therefore we will not find, and therefore we will declare safe. Now this is what has happened with the United States experience. A declaration of safety on the basis of a false assumption of substantial equivalence. In the case of BT, BT is, Bacillus thuringiensis is a soil bacterium. In itself, it is not toxic, except to particular insects in whose guts it's converted from an endotoxin to a protoxin into a toxin. But it's the enzymes in the gut of the insect that make it toxin. The BT in the plant is now genetically engineered and an active, ready-made, high-dose toxin, which means its target is not just the insect of the caterpillar family, but all species, which is why we are getting all these reports on animal deaths, which is why we are getting reports on allergies, and Jeffrey will go into some more detail on that. So the very assumption of substantial equivalence is totally false. And by defining the issue of substantial equivalence, what has happened is the actual genetically engineered product is never tested. What's tested is the safe equivalent in nature. So for example, the protein, surrogate proteins are tested. The BT in the soil organism is tested, and then there's constant declaration it's fine for animals because the animals don't convert this into a toxin in their gut. Now, the BT cotton issue is still so intense in this country, and already the government is trying to push BT brinjal. And you've all received a bengan, and I'm not going to go into details because that little bengan will tell you everything there is. Just two little additional inputs on the bengan story. You might recall that when the nuclear deal was signed, at the same time a US-India knowledge initiative in agriculture was signed. And with that knowledge initiative in agriculture, two things started to happen. The US government started to directly finance biotechnology research in this country. And all the BT trials in the Tamil Nadu Agriculture University and in other places have been financed by a US aid project. Interestingly, now with the debate that has got created around BT toxin, because the French scientist Seralini looked at the data and commented on its inadequacy, they've set up a committee on the biosafety protocol. And two of the people on the committee are the very scientists who've received USAID money to do the biotechnology, and now they're going to sit in judgment of themselves to say, we didn't do it right. Can we even expect that? The second level of intervention that's being made is at the regulatory level. In a very direct way, laws of this country are being changed by direct intervention by the US at this point, and which means on behalf of giants like Monsanto. One example of this is last year the attempt to delete food, the word food, from the laws governing genetically modified organisms, which would have meant that foods would not be covered by safety of the genetic engineering kind. They just go into normal food safety. The second attempt was to dismantle all the laws that we have in this country and replace it with a regulatory authority with one person sitting there, and we know it'll be a Monsanto appointee, and the functions of promotion of the technology and regulation all mixed up once more. And that's the National Biotechnology Regulatory Authority proposal, which again we have been resisting. A more recent issue that's emerged is the Food and Drug Administration of the US has set up directly offices in India and Mumbai and Delhi. So not only is there influence through US aid, not only is there influence through legal advisors in the ministries who rewrite laws and undo our sovereignty, for the first time we have foreign regulatory bodies defining the issue of food safety in this country. And that has dual hazards. Of course, it has a straightforward hazard for sovereignty, but it has a hazard that we will now go on a fast track to declare safe things as dangerous. For example, the artisanal foods of Purani Delhi. Parantha Wali Gali will be thoroughly unsafe because you use hands, you don't have a 12 by 80 fridge, you don't have giant size steel platforms. Chef Gill is here, and Chef Gill knows what the value of those indigenous foods is. But meantime, while the safe will be declared hazardous, the hazardous will be declared safe, and that will include all the chemicals in our food, as well as the genetically engineered foods. I want to just mention the new food safety law that was literally put into Parliament and passed in the shadow of the nuclear debate. And every parliamentarian was so occupied with nuclear issues, they didn't even look. I did make calls, but everyone kept saying, oh, but we have to pay attention to nuclear. This new Food Safety Act, which has replaced the Prevention of Food Adulteration Act and many other laws, actually has a clause. First of all, everything becomes self-regulation. The companies will decide what's safe and not safe, not the independent public bodies. But the part that really is amazing is, if a farmer brings a substandard product, which in this case means diverse product, a potato with a different shape, or a tomato with or our bangans, our various small indigenous bangans, then that will get a fine. A substandard is defined as not dangerous to health, but not submitting itself to the uniformity of the breeding of the industry. Then that gets a fine of 5 lakhs. And if an industry kills somebody with toxins or E. coli or something, that also has a 5 lakh. Yeah? So diversity is a crime equal to murder. So we are at a huge watershed. We are so glad so many of you are here, because every one of you makes a difference in our society.